Hi, I'm Taylor of Taylor Lynn Crochet and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about why designers of crochet and knitwear patterns charge for their patterns. And this is a question that comes up a lot. It's a topic that comes up a lot within my DMs on Instagram, and people send me messages on Facebook. So I know that I'm not the only designer who runs into these questions, and I just want to get all the information out there so that you guys can know what goes into a crochet pattern and why we charge for them. If you guys like this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. If you want to subscribe and see more videos like this, you want to see market tips, market setups, crochet patterns, Addy tutorials, any of that kind of stuff, definitely subscribe to my channel and make sure you hit the little bell icon on there so that you can be notified every time I post something new. So what I did so that I could get the best information for you guys, because I didn't want to base this just on my sole experience, I guess, in designing. So I interviewed about 30 different designers. I had them all fill out a survey, and in the survey I asked them a bunch of questions, basically to get an average, I guess, for how much time it takes them through each different step of the designing process to make a pattern, so that you guys can know how much time actually goes into making just one single pattern, so you can see why we would need to compensate ourselves with an income from all the time that we devote to these. And I'm just going to walk you guys through the designing steps that I talk about, that I surveyed these guys about, so you can get an understanding of the hundreds of decisions that go into making one single pattern. And then at the end, I'll tell you guys what everyone's answers were on the survey and how much time it actually takes to design a simple pattern. So the first thing I asked them was how much time they take to research and choose a yarn. So you guys might be thinking, just pick a yarn and go for it, or pick your yarn first and then design a pattern. It's not that easy. There are a lot of factors that go into just picking a yarn before you even start a project. You have to consider things like, where is this being worn? Is it something that can go in water? Is it something that needs to absorb water, like a washcloth? Is it something that you're going to be wearing outside? Is the weather going to be warm or cold outside? Are you going to be sweating or you're not going to be sweating? Is it something that has to be breathable? Is it something that shouldn't be breathable? Is it a wearable? Is it something that you sit on or use as a pillow? Is it something that's going to be outside, inside? Our children are going to be wearing this. How do you wash it? Is it something that's washer and dryer friendly? Is it something that can be only hand washed and laid flat to dry? All of those things need to be taken into consideration when just choosing the kind of material your yarn needs to be made out of. And then obviously you have to find yarns that fit your material criteria, and then also fit the size and weight that you need for the certain pattern you have in mind. Also, you need to see what the availability of that yarn is in your country, in other people's countries, even in your local state. I'm luckily by Hobby Lobby, Joann's, and Michael's, but I know that not everyone has access to a Hobby Lobby, not everyone has access to a Michael's, not everyone has access to a Joann's. So I have to make sure that if I get a Hobby Lobby specific brand yarn, that I have a substitute that people in Australia can use, people in Canada can use, people in Mexico can use, because you're not just worried about the people in your local region using your pattern. Your patterns are generally a nationwide, worldwide kind of thing. And all of that has to be considered when making a pattern. So you either have to find one pattern that meets all the criteria, or you might have to find several yarns. You have to find one yarn that fits all the criteria, or several yarns that fit all of the criteria that you're going to need for this one pattern. So that's lots of research to do before you even get into the designing portion of a pattern. The next thing I asked is just how long on average does it take for them to design the actual pattern. So this would be physically making the pattern and frogging it probably at least 10 times. I've never ever made a pattern and not had to frog at least half of it 3 times. It takes a lot of times. It's a lot of gauging and swatching and math. There's so much math involved when you're designing a pattern, even in just the first initial one that you're doing, and not even getting into sizes yet. That this is just for like the basic model piece that you're doing. And researching new crochet techniques, new knit techniques, finding videos that can explain how to do those techniques to your audience, or creating those videos for your audience. taking detailed notes. If you guys can imagine that every single time we do a different stitch in the middle of a row, or we do an increase in the middle of the row, or every time you end a row, you have to stop, put your yarn down, put your hook down, go get a piece of paper out or your phone or whatever and take notes and write down exactly what you did. And then you pick it up, do one more row or however many stitches until your next different thing that you do, and then you have to set it down and write it down. That really takes a lot of time. You are constantly stopping and going and stopping and going and stopping and going just to get through this one design. Also, like I said, frogging. Can you imagine if you got to row 23 in your project and then it just said, okay, now frog the whole thing, rip it all out and start over? Because that's what designers do. That's what the design process is. It's a lot of trial and error, and it takes a lot of time just to do that portion of it. The next thing I asked them was, how long does it take to write, like physically write and format the pattern? So this is stuff like formatting it for a blog post and then also formatting it for a PDF, because when you format for a blog post, it's completely different than when you format it for a PDF. When I'm formatting for a blog post, I'm thinking, how does this look on my website? I'm placing ads throughout it. Sometimes, unless you have an advertiser that places them for you, you are not so much concerned about condensing it all to make it printer friendly. You're worried about spacing it all out so that it's reader friendly. It's more about the readability of it. And then we also have to worry about things like keywords and our readability for Google searches, so that if you guys actually even Google crochet pattern or crochet top pattern, that you can actually find my crochet top. There's a lot of kind of those intricate things that go in behind the scenes just to make sure that you guys can find it if you're looking for it. Yeah, so that one, it takes a lot longer than you think, writing out what you're doing into words in a way that 10 other people can read it and know what you're saying. Everyone's brains work a little bit differently, so it gets a little tricky when you're not trying to over explain it, because you don't want people who are more advanced to not want to read it all and just say, forget about it, I'm going to use a different pattern. But also you don't want to leave it too vague where you get a ton of questions. So that's a really long process as well, just doing that. And then I also asked them, the next question was, how long on average does it take for additional sizes on a pattern? What people don't realize, because I get messages sometimes or comments left on my Instagram or my blog that I'm not size inclusive, because I offer a lot of small, medium, large is often how I've written my patterns, and that's just because sizing is terrifying. I'm like a medium large. I'm like in between two sizes in everything that I wear. So even just trying to find a piece that fits me and I make it to fit me, because that's how my first design is always to fit myself. I have to decide, if does this fit like a medium or does this fit like a large? And then I have to base my sizing off of that. And sizing is a lot of math. For each additional size that I add, it adds at least 1 to 2 hours of work of just doing the math, of figuring out what the sizes is and how to increase and decrease the sizing. You guys may notice on a lot of my patterns, I will do like a small, medium, large, and I say, if you additionally want to increase this size or decrease this size, you need to add 3 stitches or 3 starting chains for every inch you want to add. So that allows people to kind of edit it and math it out on their own a little bit. And that's my way of like a little bit of give and take, because of how much time and headaches go into trying to make the sizing right. And even if you spend 4 hours doing it, there's no guarantees that your sizing is going to be correct. So that is a lot of time. There's a lot of math, there's a lot of swatching, and then a lot of times you might have to make the same item in multiple sizes before you can release your pattern to make sure that those sizes are actually correct. Another thing I asked is, how long does it take to take and edit photos? So you guys might not know this. Some of you might, if you actually sell and photograph your finished items, you'll know this. But getting your tripod out, getting your camera out, finding good lighting outside, or purchasing your own lights inside, and then setting all of that up. You have to clean usually a corner of your room somewhere and set everything up and take pictures. If you're doing it outside, that means you have to carry all of this stuff outside with you. You might have to find a model. You might have to have someone take your pictures for you. Those are also things, because those are dependent upon other people's schedules, which is also really hard. And if you guys follow me on Instagram, you know that I might take 200 pictures of me wearing the same top and only 15 to 20 of those pictures turn out. So only about 10% of pictures actually turn out and make it to the viewers of you guys. Like, you guys only see 5 to 10% of the photos that I actually take. And so when you take 200 photos, that takes a lot of time. Then you have to bring it to your computer, upload 200 photos, go through 200 photos, choose the 15 to 20 that you really like, and then you have to go edit those photos, and you have to insert them into your patterns, add captions for those photos, and any pictures that have an arrow pointing on them or text on the picture, that is something that someone did in editing. So all of that stuff takes so much time. It's a lot of work adding photos into a pattern, but a lot of people rely on photos for farther clarification when the written directions just aren't clicking for them. And then the last thing I asked was regarding the designing time, was how long does it take you to work with testers or tech editors? So a lot of you might not know, if you don't design patterns, that we send our patterns out to testers. So these are people who are getting our pattern and the first ones to read it, and they're kind of like our editors. And they go through and try it, and they tell you if you have any typos in there. They tell you if your stitch count is off on a row, if there's any wording that doesn't make sense, all of that stuff, which just finding people to test, you can get a lot of volunteers, but they are not necessarily the right fit for you. I can't even tell you how many times I've asked people on Instagram, hey, I need some testers for this pattern. And someone comes and they message me and they say, I would love to do that in a small. And I'm like, great, perfect, awesome. I'll send you the pattern and I'll send you all the criteria I have, the things that I need from you. You have 2 weeks to get it back to me. And they're like, perfect, that's plenty of time. I'll get it back to you in 2 weeks. I send them the email with my pattern. And I send a list of criteria, like I need to know what kind of yarn you used, if you used a different yarn, same yarn, how much yarn you ended up using, how was the fit, was it what you expected it to be according to my sizes, how easy to read was the pattern, can you please take notes throughout the pattern if the wording's confusing or if I need to add something or you think photos or videos need to be added, etc. And then you send it to them and you never hear from them again. That happens a lot to designers, where people basically just want their pattern, and instead of waiting for it to come out and purchasing it or waiting for it to come out free on their blog, they just volunteer to test, and then the designer never hears from them again, which is really disheartening and it's frustrating, and you were relying on that person and now you have to go spend more time finding someone new. So then that goes into the thing where we as designers have to start making contracts or applications for testers. So you have to wait for people to fill out applications. You have to give them a time frame. They just send them an email to fill out this contract, basically saying that I will do your pattern and do your testing and do all that stuff within this time frame, or I'm going to pay you for your pattern, essentially. That all comes into play. And then there's a lot of the back and forth that happens when someone is testing for you. I just don't send it to them and say, okay, have at it, I'll hear back from you in 2 weeks. There's a lot of back and forth, emails that go back and forth, Instagram messages, questions about the patterns and stuff like that. And then also tech editing. So tech editor is different than pattern tester. This is someone you usually pay, and they go through your pattern and make sure your formatting's all good, make sure your spelling's all good, make sure your math is all good on everything. They just make sure you have like your gauge is right, that your gauge is even on there, that you have like your yarn and hook size and everything that people need for a pattern is available to them. So, and that's the service that we have to pay for if we want that. But it prevents a lot of questions down the road from you guys when you review our crochet patterns and use them. And that takes a lot of time too. So all of that just to design one pattern. And I asked all these guys to fill out a time for each thing, and I will put the times per like picking out your yarn, designing, all of that stuff in my blog post if you guys want to check out the actual details and breakdowns of these numbers. But for a small pattern like a hat, a scarf, or a bag, something just small like that, that's not super intricate but just a small pattern, it takes on average 43 hours to design that pattern. 43 hours, that's one full work week that it takes to design a pattern, a small pattern. For a large pattern like a sweater or a blanket, it takes on average, from the 30 designers that I surveyed, 72 hours to design that pattern. That's almost 2 work weeks. And a lot of us that design patterns are people who have full-time jobs, who go to school, who have children, who have spouses and a family and other hobbies outside of crochet, and we have to pull 43 hours for a small project or 72 for a large project, pick and pull that between our family time, between our work, between our housework. A lot of crocheters, a lot of crochet pattern designers, I bet you have very messy houses. Housework is something that you kind of let go because you have to pick and choose. Am I going to go vacuum or am I going to design another pattern? For me personally, it's not much of a hard choice because I really hate vacuuming, but I hate a messy room too. So that's a lot of time, and that is one of the main reasons that a crochet designer needs to be compensated with, like, monetarily with money for patterns, because if I'm gonna tell my boyfriend that I can't go hang out with him and watch a movie with him, I can't go to dinner with my friends, I can't go to breakfast with my mom or hang out with my mom because I have to design another pattern, it's a lot easier of a pill to swallow for them if I say, hey, I'm making money off of this. This is a side hustle. This is work. This is a job. It's like a second job for me. Then if I just say, no, I'm going to go spend all of my time doing this with no kind of benefit to me, just out of the joy of my heart, I'm going to give crochet patterns. It just does not work. People would never design crochet patterns unless they somehow were fully financially supported by another person and had minimal life responsibilities, I guess. Like, we have to at least make enough money to pay for our yarn and our materials and stuff like that. Which brings me into my next thing. I asked all of these designers, how much money do you spend on average per pattern? And for small patterns, a lot of people said on average it costs them at least $30, and that's like materials, tech editors costs, printing costs if they have to print anything, around $30 for a small pattern. And the average was around $70 for a large pattern. And just keep in mind that these are averages. If you're doing a large blanket or a sweater or something like that, you might have to buy 6 skeins of like 3 different brands of yarn just to see which one works for you and test them all out and make them in multiple things. It can get really costly just trying to design a pattern. And then I also ask how much they spend annually just putting these patterns out online, just getting them out to you guys and getting them where you guys can view them, download them, read them, whatever. The average cost for that was $1,330. That's a lot of money. That is so much money. And that is the cost of things like our website hosting fees that we pay on Etsy and PayPal and Shopify. Site security, because everyone who has their own self-hosted blog has to have some kind of security so it doesn't get hacked and all your guys' information doesn't get stolen. Microsoft Office app, photo editing software is not cheap, and it's necessary. It's super necessary for doing this. Equipment, like for our photography equipment, our computer equipment, software to make stitch charts, and other things that we use to design and edit our photos for you guys. That's a lot of money to spend, and we have to at least make enough money back to pay for those things. Otherwise, we're just digging ourselves in a hole financially, and we're losing out on a lot of these moments with our friends and family that we could just be spending with them. And this is a give and take relationship. I put all my patterns for free on my blog. Almost all of them. I think I only have 2 patterns. I only have 2 patterns that are paid only that you can't get free on my blog. And that's it. Every other pattern I have you can get free on my blog. And if you want an ad-free PDF, you can purchase that and it will be easy to print. I have gotten message after message about this on Facebook, usually from people who send me very hateful and negative and mean messages, you guys, and they say things like I'm stealing from them, I'm a liar, I'm a crook, because I have on my Pinterest pictures it says free crochet pattern, and they come to my blog and they see my free pattern and it's all there, but they can't print it or they don't know how to print it. And I charge for the PDF. They think that I'm stealing from them or I'm lying. patterns are free to view on blogs. And the reason that they're free to view and for you to use is because every time you guys go to our websites and you stay on our page and you scroll through our page, we get some kind of monetary compensation through advertisers normally, and sometimes through affiliate links if you choose to purchase anything through our links we have on our page. And if we didn't get compensated through our advertisers, then we probably wouldn't have free content on our blog. That's how you guys are able to have access to it for free, is because someone else is paying us for you being on our blog. If you don't want to come to our blog and you don't want to come spend time scrolling through and reading the pattern off of your tablet, phone, or computer, I understand, I prefer paper pattern as well, then you can pay the extra $2 to $3, sometimes $2 to $5, depending on whose pattern you're buying, for the ad-free printable PDF. It's an extra service that you're getting, an extra convenience that you get that you're paying for. It is, I don't put on Pinterest, free, ad-free, printable PDF pattern on my blog. That's not what I'm advertising. I'm just advertising that I have a free pattern it's free for anyone to view and use. I'm sure there's a way that you could copy, paste, and reformat and print it all out on your own, but that's a lot of work and you guys don't want to do it. And I understand that, which is why we do all the work and offer it to you in an ad-free printable PDF. But I just want to clarify that, because I know I am not the only designer that gets messages like that on Facebook, and they leave a really bad taste in your mouth, and it's really frustrating, and there's no point in even arguing with people a lot of times when they come at you in such an aggressive manner. But I felt like it needed to be addressed, because I have gotten in multiple discussions about this in private messages, and I just want to clarify that. I also asked these designers if they wanted to like add anything, or is there anything else that they wanted you guys to know as purchasers of crochet patterns or viewers of crochet patterns, just about the designing process in general. And one thing that someone pointed out that I completely forgot about was that these hours, these 73 hours and the 42 hours that I talked to you guys about, are only for the patterns that you actually see that make it. This is not including all the time we spent on patterns that were a complete flop, or patterns that we finished but we just couldn't put it into words and explain it well enough for you guys to justify putting it on our blogs. There are probably, for every pattern you see, there's probably 5 patterns that didn't make it. There's 5 patterns that were started and worked on for hours and hours and hours that never will see the light of day. So that's something you need to keep in mind too, that it's not like we spend just 40 hours or just 70 hours making these patterns. It probably was 200 hours, and 70 of it was on the pattern that you guys actually ended up seeing. And another thing that I didn't consider with the time that it takes for these patterns is the marketing portion. There's a lot of times, you guys probably follow people on Instagram and Facebook. It takes a lot of times to curate all those photos, write all those captions, put all those keywords and hashtags and all those things in there, and making our blogs SEO friendly, which means like search engine optimization, so that you guys can find it on Google. Because if we didn't take the time to disperse our pictures everywhere and our information everywhere on Pinterest and all of that stuff, you guys would never see our patterns. Every time I release a pattern, I have to send an email out to all of my subscribers to format an email, pictures, links, all of that stuff. I have to make 3 Pinterest pictures and edit, caption, do your frames, do your text, your overlay, choose colors, all of that stuff for 3 photos for Pinterest. I have to go on Facebook and I have to share it to like 4 different Facebook groups, share it to my Facebook page, and then I have to go on Instagram and talk about it in my stories. Then I have to go on Instagram and post about it. And then I have to go back in a couple weeks and repin them all on Pinterest, repost about them on Instagram, so that they're still kept going, so that people who maybe weren't following me 3 months ago are following me now know that I have this pattern available. That is also hours and hours and hours of time, and something for you guys to keep in mind. My camera ran out of battery right here, so it cut me short. But one more thing I wanted to let you guys know to remember was that we also spend a lot of time answering questions and responding to questions, emails. Even before people buy some of our patterns, sometimes they have questions about the listing we have to reply to. We are not available 24/7. We do have regular like business hours that we'd work, just like if you owned a regular brick and mortar store, you'd have business hours. That's why you might notice that if you send a message to a crochet designer and you're in a different time zone than we are, it might be 3 a.m. our time. So you might not get a response for 10 hours, or you might not get a response until the next day if they're, have life things that take precedence over anything else that day. But we do try to always get back to you, everybody. I know that a lot of designers have like a 24-hour rule for responding back to comments, and they try to answer everyone within 24 hours. But just remember that we are people with families and life and business and work and just stuff to do. So we won't always get back to you right away, but we will always get back to you eventually. And that is a lot of hours of our time that's also spent responding to stuff like that. But I will leave you guys with that. I hope that if you were someone who wondered why designers charge for patterns, if you're on the fence about it, if you just maybe didn't have an understanding of how much work actually goes into a single pattern, that this helped give you a better, well-rounded idea of what we do on a daily basis and how much time is spent perfecting these and getting them right for you guys. Also, if you're someone who's considering designing patterns, I hope this didn't scare you. I hope, if anything, it encouraged you to try it out and, charge what you're worth and be compensated for the hard work that you do. Nobody should work for free. And, thank you so much for watching, you guys. If you want to see more videos like this, definitely subscribe. If you like this one, give it a thumbs up. I would love to hear what you guys feel about on this topic. If you disagree, if you wholeheartedly agree, if there was something that I didn't take into account when it comes to designing patterns and I missed something, I would love to hear about that, and then I can add it to my blog post. But thanks so much for sticking around. If you guys want to join a really awesome, happy, positive community crochet Facebook group, definitely check out the Ash and Tay community Facebook group. Me and Ashley of A Crafty Concept created this group, and we created it because a lot of groups that we joined on Facebook had a limit on self-promotion or didn't allow self-promotion at all. And we are all about helping other businesses grow, and we want you guys to grow, and we want to help ourselves grow. We just want everyone to work together and see what we can all conquer together. So if you've been looking for a Facebook group where you can share your new pattern designs, where you can share your new work in progress and, ask business questions, ask blogging questions, ask crochet questions, this is definitely the group for you. So definitely go check it out. I'll leave those links below, and I will see you guys next time.